Today we are going to do something a little bit different than usual because we are going to talk about bad code. More specifically, I want to show you how easy it is to think of some clever trick that is going to improve and shorten a syntax, but then you end up with something that is actually going to hurt the readability and the maintainability of your code. And to really understand this example, you're going to need to know about autoclosure. So if you're not sure about how autoclosure works, please pause this video and go check out this other video to really understand how it works, and then you can come back. Otherwise, I'm afraid you're going to have a hard time understanding the example. But let's get started. So let's say that I have a view in my code, and I want to change a property of the view, and I want this change to be animated on the front end. So the way to implement this animation in UIKit is to call a method on UI view. We call the static method animate with duration. We give it the duration of the animation, and then for the animation themselves, we need to pass a closure. And in this closure, what we are going to do is that we are going to update the property of our view. So here I want to update the background color, and background color is what UIKit calls an animatable property, meaning that if I update this property inside the closure that I give to my animate method, well, the change is actually not going to happen immediately on the front end, but instead it will be animated just like I want it to be. So I have this code, it's working perfectly fine, but let's say that we want to improve it. Well, maybe a way to improve it will be to take a look at this code and say, well, you know, I need to pass in a closure, but in my closure there is only one line. So basically I need to open a new scope, all of this for one line. Maybe we could try and improve this by just being able to remove the need to explicitly create a closure. And this is when autoclosure is going to come into play. So we are going to try and make an extension on UI view. So in this extension, we are going to implement a new animate method, but this new animate method, I will make it so that it will actually optimize for the case where the animation closure only has one single line. So first I begin by writing the signature of the function. So it's a static func. I still call it animate, while I'm still going to need a duration. And then for the animation themselves, well, I still need to have a closure, you know, because this is the way that UIKit expects me to deal with animation. So I need to have a closure. I need to mark this closure as escaping. But what I'm also going to do is that I'm going to mark this closure with the attribute @autoclosure. And by adding this attribute, well, we are actually going to be able to optimize for the case of a single line animation. But before we can actually call this method, we need to implement it. So inside, well, I'm just going to call the regular animate method from UI view, and I'm going to pass in the duration and the animation. So we can see that the only thing that changes is actually this addition of autoclosure in the signature, and we are adding it because we want to try and optimize for the case where my animation only requires one line to be implemented. So now let's try and use this new function. So I'm going to call it. So for the duration, well, I'm going to still take the same duration than before. And for the animations themselves, well, I'm going to take my one-liner here, copy it, and I'm going to paste it for the second argument. Now you can see that this code indeed it builds, because what's happening here is that my line here, well, it actually automatically gets turned into a closure thanks to the attribute autoclosure here. So in a way it is working because I am able to optimize the case, the call side for one-liner animation. You can see here that I needed to open a closure. Here I don't need to, I can just pass in the animation just like a regular argument. And well, it is indeed an optimization, but I think it is a bad optimization. And the reason why is that now when you take a look at this code and you read about it, well, it's really not clear for you that this is going to be turned into a closure. You know, at autoclosure, it's indeed marked in the declaration of the function, but at the call site, it's completely not there. And that's the point of autoclosure. But when it is not clear to the reader that this is going to be turned into a closure, I think it's not a good thing. And that's why I really wanted to share this bad example with you, because actually I'm guilty of having made this example myself. You know, this piece of code, I took it from an old GitHub repo of mine. And at the time when I originally wrote it, I can tell you that I was feeling super clever to have been able to use this autoclosure attribute in order to improve my call site. But now thinking about it a few years later, I think that this is a really bad optimization. And that's basically the point that I wanted to get across with this video. In Swift, we have a lot of keyword, attributes, concepts that can allow us to optimize our call site in order to make our call site as short and as efficient as possible. But whenever we want to introduce such an optimization, I think we really need to think hard and think to ourselves, well, indeed I am going to shorten my call site, but is it going to also hurt the readability of my code? And to be honest, I think that when an optimization hurts the readability of your code, it should be discarded because it's going in the long term to basically hurt the quality and the maintainability of your code base. So that's all for this video about bad code. You know, if you think that yourself you have also been guilty of writing this kind of bad optimization, well, please feel free to share some example in the comment. I would be super curious to see them. Thank you for watching and see you next time.